Was it a power play when Donald Trump demanded the same thing in Texas? Said that he was entitled to 5 seats in Texas? Was that a power play?
Texas isn't Virginia. The states are sovereign according to the Constitution. The 10th Amendment says federalism. Each state has the right to conduct it differently.
I'm asking you if it was a power play.
How it played out in Texas because Texas isn't Virginia.
I understand that Texas is not Virginia, but I want to know if you think if it was a power play.
They always think they can just flood the zone with talking points. MAGA operatives are trained to go on television, completely ignore the facts, and pivot to manufactured culture wars the second they start losing an argument. But today, Trump aide Caroline Sunshine ran into a brick wall. What you are about to see is a masterclass in dismantling the right-wing spin machine. We are watching Brian Tyler Cohen go head-to-head with a Trump operative, and he doesn't just win a debate, he completely exposes the Republican establishment's strategy to rig the system. While one side is relying on millions of voters and independent commissions, the other side is using raw, unchecked legislative fiat to erase representation in the South and usher in Jim Crow too. Watch closely. The exact second she gets backed into a corner and can't defend the blatant gerrymandering, she panics. She immediately tries to hijack the conversation with baseless claims about illegal immigrants voting. If you are tired of bad faith political operatives trying to gaslight you about who is actually stripping away your voting rights, you are in the right place. This is Floor Leader Insider, and we don't let them pivot. Before we continue, do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, guys. It really helps me to keep bringing you these political deep dives. Watch till the end because I'll be giving you my thoughts at the end of this video. Let's get into the tape.
Welcome back to both of you. Brian, let's start with you. You have been on this redistricting train for years, telling Democrats that you should redistrict. A lot of times they wouldn't listen to you. Now it seems like they finally are and realizing the risk of this. What's your reaction to what happened in Virginia and what Democrats should do now?
Look, I think that the reaction to what happened in Virginia is that it is the perfect encapsulation of the asymmetry between the two sides, where we have independent redistricting commissions in all of the Democratic weapons. And, even when you go to the voters, even when 3 million people show up to vote in a referendum that based on some small technicality, all of those voters' voices are going to be silenced. At the same time that we have Republicans in Florida, in Texas, in North Carolina, possibly South Carolina, Tennessee, all who've just decided by fiat that they're going to redraw their states' maps. I mean, basically ushering in elected legislatures, but redrawing the state maps without a single person weighing in on this stuff, basically ushering in Jim Crow 2.0 in the South. I wouldn't be surprised if we get to a point where we see no black representation in any of these southern states. And so I think it's a wake-up call to Democrats across the country. If you are a Democrat in New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Illinois, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, this is the time to start fighting back and recognize the urgency of this moment right here. Because Republicans don't believe that Democrats have a right to exist as a party. And so if we don't start fighting back and if we don't stop unilaterally disarming, we're basically going to good government ourselves into obscurity.
Caroline, what do you think of this? Is it Jim Crow 2.0?
Well, so you're opposed to this because you think that this dilutes people's political power unfairly? Is that why you're opposed to this?
I think that it dilutes the ability of people in certain jurisdictions to be able to vote for their representatives. Nashville has been cracked into multiple districts. Memphis has been cracked in multiple districts. And so there's no way that those people who live in those jurisdictions can vote for their representatives because the Republicans have purposefully gerrymandered those states to dilute their voting power.
So you're against diluting voting power?
I'm against gerrymandering.
Okay, so do you support then illegal immigrants being allowed to vote in elections?
Illegal immigrants don't vote in federal elections.
Well, illegal immigrants are who Democrats want to vote in federal elections.
But that doesn't make it It doesn't matter if they want. It doesn't matter what anybody wants.
If you are against diluting political power for anybody, you should not want illegal immigrants to vote in American elections because we can't dilute the political power of Americans.
But this isn't a discussion about that. And illegal immigrants are not allowed to vote in federal elections. What about this move of what the Supreme Court did and what Republicans are doing right now when it comes to redistricting? A lot of this started with President Trump telling Texas to get him more congressional districts.
Well, I think checks and balances played out here. I mean, the Virginia Supreme Court said this can't happen in 2026, but it could happen in 2028. So I'm not sure what the big deal is here. This went through the democratic process, and the Supreme Court, the judge struck it down, saying the language in the referendum was flagrantly misleading. And he's not saying it can't happen. He's just saying it can't happen in 2026 because it's unconstitutional. And he's correct, because that is a flagrant power play by Democrats to try to reshape the midterms in 2026.
So if you think
now,
that's
my question
if you
for
think
you
that's a power play,
is
was
what comes next?
Was it a power play when Donald Trump demanded the same thing in Texas, said that he was entitled to 5 seats in Texas? Was that a power play?
Texas isn't Virginia. The states are sovereign according to the Constitution. The 10th Amendment says federalism. Each state has the right to conduct it differently.
I'm asking you if
it played out how it played out in Texas because Texas isn't Virginia.
I understand
now,
that Texas is not Virginia, but I want to know if you think if it was a power play.
Where does this go? Because you want to talk about power plays. I would love to know. Hassan Piker on your side of the aisle said today that as a result of this ruling, if a peaceful revolution is not possible, then violent revolution is inevitable. So
Okay,
do you agree with Hassan Piker?
I'm not Hassan Piker. Hassan Piker can.
But do you agree with that?
Hassan Piker can speak for himself.
What does he mean by that?
I don't know. You can ask him. I'm not Hassan Piker. I'm
But
Brian.
do you agree with that? Do you condemn that?
Call Hassan Piker
Where
and
do you
ask.
want to see this go?
What I'm here. I don't care what Hassan Piker says. I'm not Hassan Piker.
I don't think Brian's pushing for a violent revolution either.
Are you or no? Just to be clear, because like, where does this go now that the Supreme Court in Virginia has ruled
Here's
this
where
is
it goes.
not
It goes to me calling on every Democratic elected official, either in the legislature or the governor's office, in Democratic states across the country, and demanding that they redraw maps to fight fire with fire and actually counteract what Republicans have done in a raft of different states across the country and what they continue to do in southern states across the country in response to the Voting Rights Act being gutted.
Do you think that there should be a national ban on gerrymandering to try to stop this whole thing around the country?
I'm not opposed to it, but I also believe that the Constitution says, the 10th Amendment, what is not outlined here is left to the states. And I think states have a right to decide their own process. And that's what I'm arguing with you is the process played out here in Virginia. It was put on the ballot on a referendum directly with the voters. It barely passed. The language was extremely misleading. There was an appeal. It then went to the state Supreme Court. What's the problem here? Checks and balances played out.
And you support a national ban.
100%. And in fact, when the Democrats put that forward, a national ban on gerrymandering in 2021, the Freedom to Vote Act, every single Democrat voted for it. Every single Republican voted against it.
Do you think the United States Supreme Court, which has supported Texas's right to do this and has supported California's right to do this, will support Virginia's right to do redistricting? You think they might overturn this?
No. I think that this Supreme Court has proven itself to be an arm of the Republican Party, if nothing else. And we have seen numerous instances where, whether it's this U.S. Supreme Court, where you had a bunch of justices beat their chest about the importance of precedent and the Voting Rights Act, which is, that precedent has been reaffirmed over and over and over again for the past 60 years, just like Roe was precedent that was reaffirmed over and over again. The Supreme Court stands for its own adherence to the Republican Party.
You think the Supreme Court might step in?
I don't think they're going to hear this. I don't see why they would. Again, the people of Virginia spoke. And what's interesting is when this referendum was put on the ballot, let's be very clear, it disenfranchised the rights and the voices, if we're talking about who got disenfranchised with a referendum, of rural Virginians. This referendum transferred power from majority of the state, which is rural Virginians, and consolidated it among the swamp, which is people who work in D.C. and live in Virginia. But I didn't hear you speaking up then.
And I, by the way, I would concede that when you have a gerrymandered map, certain people are disenfranchised, which is why this whole thing was sparked off after Republicans first went after Texas. I didn't agree with it when it happened in Texas, but what I don't want to see is unilateral disarmament. I think gerrymandering is a scourge all around. But if you really care about disenfranchisement, then you'll care about it when it happens right off the bat. You'll care about it when it happens in Texas. You'll care about it when all of a sudden Memphis is cracked into multiple districts, Nashville is cracked into multiple districts, and those people have no voting power because that's 100% Republican.
And that
now.
is true in California now, that Republicans are being disenfranchised by Prop 50.
But the difference
and the
is
districts are not. It's not fair to
Correct.
Republican voters. And the idea of like a 52-0 map here is not fair. Just like it's not fair what we're seeing in Tennessee and other places where there's going to be no Democratic representation. That's bad for democracy.
Correct. It's terrible for democracy.
Right.
The difference is there's only one party that actually supports a nationwide ban on gerrymandering, and that's the Democrats.
Violent revolution, to be clear, is also bad for democracy.
And
I
neither
agree.
Brian nor myself are endorsing violent revolution, just to be clear. Always against political violence. I've said that repeatedly.
That right there is what a total collapse of the MAGA narrative looks like in real time. Notice the playbook? When Caroline Sunshine couldn't defend the fact that Republicans are aggressively carving up working class and minority districts in places like Nashville and Memphis to silence voters, what did she do? She desperately pivoted to illegal immigration, and when that got shut down, she tried to invoke Hassan Piker to manufacture a culture war soundbite. This is what they do. When they can't win on the math, they manufacture the outrage. But let's look at the actual receipts. In 2021, every single Democrat voted for the Freedom to Vote Act to ban gerrymandering nationwide. Every single Republican blocked it. They do not want fair maps because they know they cannot win on a fair map. Instead, they rely on a captured, hyper-partisan Supreme Court functioning as an aggressive arm of the Republican Party, ready to rubber stamp this massive power grab at every turn under the false disguise of checks and balances. We are witnessing the systematic dismantling of the democratic process through raw power, and they expect you to just look the other way. We aren't going to let that happen. If you want to be part of the movement that cuts through the political theater, calls out the bad faith actors, and holds the elite establishment accountable, hit that subscribe button right now. Like the video. Force the algorithm to push the truth. Keep questioning the narrative, and I'll see you in the next one.